It seemed like just any other day in the operations center of Deep Space Nine. Kira and Dax are mid-casual conversation when they're interrupted by the arrival of a Coberian freighter, the captain of which requests medical attention for a passenger suffering with Kalanora syndrome, a condition that was caused by a mining accident at a Bajoran labor camp during the Cardassian occupation, a camp that Kira herself had helped to liberate. She immediately takes an interest as she believes the patient to be a Bajoran survivor of the camp. Kira requests to Commander Sisko that she be allowed to greet this individual in person, as the survivors of the camp are held with reverence and symbols of hope. Sisko agrees and she makes her way down to the infirmary to see Dr. Bashir treating the patient. Only something is wrong. The survivor is a Cardassian. Kira, obviously disturbed by the fact that she is indeed staring at a Cardassian with Kalanora syndrome, calls for security and accuses him of being a war criminal. Upon hearing this, the Cardassian stranger attempts to flee the infirmary. He didn't get too far though, as he's stopped on the promenade by security. The stranger proclaims he's done nothing wrong, and he was just trying to get away from Kira, as she's some sort of fanatical Bajoran who simply hates Cardassians. Kira coldly and firmly states to Bashir that he can treat him in his cell. As the stranger is placed in the holding cell, it's revealed that his name is Eamon Maritza. However, he doesn't appear on any Bajoran wanted list for war criminals. Wondering why Kira has thrown this seemingly innocent Cardassian in a prison cell, Sisko asks what she intends to charge him with, to which she replies, contracting Kalanora. After Sisko questions why this would even make him guilty, Kira recounts the vile, cruel, humiliating acts that the Cardassians carried out against the Bajorans in those camps. Any Cardassian that was at Galatep was guilty. Sisko then has a chat with Maritza, who claims he does not have Kalanora syndrome. He has Potrick syndrome, a similar condition that even requires the same medication. He claims to have never been at a Bajoran labor camp, and that he was just a simple military file clerk, a nobody. Someone who in fact has never even been to Bajor. The conversation is interrupted by an angry Bajoran fellow prisoner who shouts for Odo and demands to be released because he's not being left in here with one of those, a Cardassian. Later, Dr. Bashir confirms that Maritza does indeed have Kalanora syndrome, and that there's no possible way it could be Potrick syndrome. So he was at the labor camp. He lied. But why? After a call from the Bajoran Minister of State, it becomes very clear very fast that the Bajorans definitely want to get their hands on this person of interest. Sisko, concerned at Kira's possible lack of objectivity in this case, attempts to defer the investigation to Odo. She assures him that she's not motivated by revenge, and she asks him, as a friend and as his first officer, to let her be the one to do this, for all of the victims of Galatep, for all of the victims of all the labour camps, for all Bajorans. Let her be the one to uncover the truth. Sisko, though hesitant at first, agrees, and Kira begins her investigation. Maritza appears calm and dismissive after Kira reveals that she knows he was actually at the Galatep camp and she knows he does have Kalanora. Clearly seeing that Kira is out for blood, Maritza tells her that she's going to be disappointed. He's not Big Fish. In fact, he was simply a file clerk at the camp, albeit an exemplary one. He cites that he even impressed the camp prefect, Guldahil, with his ingenious filing system. However, Kira is unconvinced and relentlessly presses him. But Maritza remains eerily composed, subtly mocking her attempts to extract any kind of damning confession. He recounts his admiration of the brilliance of Guldahil's managing of the infamous labour camp. To Kira, it's clear that he is just another prideful, evil Cardassian. As the investigation continues, Kira becomes more obsessed with uncovering the truth, admitting to Dax that she is determined to hold Maritza accountable. All of the Cardassians need to be punished, for Bajor to even begin to start to heal. Through additional investigation, an old photograph is uncovered in the Bajoran archives of the Galatep camp that shows an image of Maritza. But there's a very obvious problem. The man shown is not the man that they have in custody. Further analysis of the pictured Cardassians reveal the face of Guldahil. The resemblance is striking. The man that they have in custody is Guldahil himself. Kira confronts Maritza with this evidence. His demeanour suddenly changes. He begins to speak with arrogance and pride, boasting of the atrocities that were committed at Galatep, and taunting Kira with graphic descriptions of the horrors that took place there. How can he be a war criminal when there was never really a war? The Bajorans surrendered, and the Cardassians ruled over them with an iron fist. He revels at the suffering of the Bajorans that he, Guldahil, personally carried out, and proudly claims responsibility of the horrors that took place there. He tries to goad Kira into admitting that she too was proud of what she had done as part of the pitiful little Shakaar resistance cell. Kira, appalled by this, storms out. Kira later opens up to Odo, wondering how many more like Dahil are out there, recounting how, during the interrogation, he belittled the Shakaar resistance cell. Odo suggests that she probably shouldn't be discussing her personal history with a creature like that, but she didn't. This revelation piques Odo's curiosity. How did Dahil know about Kira's resistance cell? It's highly unlikely for anyone in his position to have access to that sort of information. Something didn't add up. Odo's investigation then leads him to a conversation with Gul Dukat. Dukat assures Odo that Guldahil actually died several years earlier. He confirms this by stating that half of Cardassia witnessed the funeral, and he himself was in attendance. Guldahil was definitely dead. The man that they had in custody was not Dahil. Why is he claiming to be so? It's likely to see him executed by the Bajoran Provisional Government. Who in their right mind would admit to something like that, let alone carry out such a fabrication, knowing where it would lead? Kira, upon hearing this revelation, is still determined to carry out the process of justice, despite the evidence that's been collected to the contrary. She's convinced that this is all some sort of elaborate deception by Dahil and the Cardassian government, and that that man in the holding cells deserves to die. Bajor, after all, deserves justice. Odo informs Kira that, according to the evidence provided, Guldahil never contracted Kalanora, because he wasn't even at Galatep at the time of the accident. He was on Cardassia, getting an award. Odo continues to tear his story apart, stating that it's very clear that this man wanted to be caught. Dr. Bashir further deconstructs Maritza's story, with evidence that the man in the holding cell shows signs of surgical alterations. He made himself look like Dahil. Things were starting to make sense. Kira confronts Maritza again. Now knowing the truth, she tears through the layers of lies, slowly eating away at Maritza's story and exposing it for the fake she knows it to be. Maritza is immediately dismissive of everything that Kira's saying, stating that he's no longer amused by her presence and wishes her to leave. Frustration builds in Maritza's eyes as he attempts to reinforce the deception with awful statements about his anger towards the Cardassian government for the withdrawal of Bajor, and how he wishes that he had slaughtered every last Bajoran in that labour camp. Filled with disgust at the mere mention of the possibility that he was Maritza, he could no longer hold it in. He finally breaks in anger and claims that Maritza was a coward. A coward who would lie awake every night in that camp and cover his ears because he couldn't stand to hear the screams of mercy from the Bajorans. After a tearful wail, he repeated that he couldn't bear to hear those horrible screams. Kira lowers the force field, entering the holding cell. As she enters, Maritza moves hastily to the corner of the cell, in some ways mirroring his own description of Maritza, cowering in a corner, calling faintly and futilely for security to intervene. Kira tells him that he couldn't have done anything. He was only one man. He proclaims that all Cardassians have to be punished for what they did during the occupation. Cardassia can only survive if it recognises its atrocities and asks for forgiveness, and that his trial as the Darth Heel facade would force Cardassia to do so. It would be a symbolic act of justice that could help to heal the wounds of the past. Kira just tells him that she won't help kill an innocent man. As Maritza is released, somewhat dejected, he states that if he had succeeded in his plan, it could have brought about a new Cardassia. Kira replies that if Cardassia is going to change, it's going to need men like him, good men. As they're walking down the promenade, the Bajoran man previously released from the holding cells stabs Maritza in the back. Maritza collapses to the ground from the clearly fatal wound, and the life drains from his face. As Kira kneels beside him, horrified and distraught, she angrily screams at the man, "Why? Why? He wasn't Dahil." The Bajoran, filled with hatred, exclaims, "He's a Cardassian." That's reason enough. Kira looks up in sorrow and disgust, saying, "No, it's not." She watches as Maritza lies dead, his last breaths filled with pain and the tragic irony of his misguided quest for redemption. DUET is an intense and powerful episode that simply cannot be summed up here in my little corner of YouTube. It's an episode that delves into complex themes such as guilt, justice, forgiveness, and the lingering wounds of war. At its core, the episode challenges viewers to examine the nature of guilt and accountability, especially in the context of war crimes and atrocities. It raises powerful questions about how societies and individuals should deal with the horrors of their past, especially when those horrors are rooted in genocide and systemic brutality. The setting of Deep Space Nine, a station filled with former enemies and new allies, helps to explore how personal prejudices and historical trauma shape our perceptions of guilt and justice. Kira, a former resistance fighter stroke terrorist who witnessed and experienced the horrors of the Cardassian occupation of Bajor, embodies the pain and anger of the Bajoran people. Her initial unrelenting belief that Maritza is a war criminal, no matter the circumstances, reflects her deep-seated hatred for Cardassians and her desire for a form of vengeance for the crimes committed against her people. DUET is a pivotal episode for Kira, offering her significant character development. At the beginning of the episode, Kira is portrayed as someone driven by anger and hatred for the Cardassians, a product of her years in the Resistance and the suffering of her people. However, as the story unfolds, her interactions with Maritza challenge her black and white view of Cardassians as a monolithic evil. She grapples with the realization that not all Cardassians are war criminals and that some, like Maritza, are genuinely haunted by their actions or inactions during the occupation. Kira's journey in this episode is one from hate and vengeance to understanding and perhaps even a glimmer of forgiveness. By the end, she recognizes that Maritza is a man tormented by guilt and seeking redemption in the only way he knows how. This realization is a significant moment for Kira as she shows her capacity to move beyond her pain and consider the possibility of reconciliation. Maritza, on the other hand, is a fascinating character study of guilt and moral responsibility. His decision to impersonate Guldahil, the Butcher of Galatep, in an attempt to force his people to confront their crimes is a tragic reflection of his internal torment. Maritza is consumed by guilt, not for what he did at Galatep, but for what he did not do. His inability to stop the atrocities or even speak out against them had driven him to desperate measures. Maritza sees himself as complicit in the crimes of his people simply by being a part of the system and doing nothing to oppose it. Now, DUET functions as an allegory for real-world issues of war crimes, historical revisionism, and the quest for justice. The episode forces the audience to confront uncomfortable questions about the collective guilt and moral responsibility of individuals within oppressive regimes. The episode also explores the dangers of unchecked hatred and the cycle of violence it perpetuates. Kira's initial desire to see Maritza punished, regardless of his actual role at Galatep, reflects a kind of blind vengeance that can potentially lead to further injustice. Her transformation over the course of the episode, her ability to see Maritza as a victim of his own people's cruelty rather than a monster, illustrates the importance of empathy and the necessity of moving beyond hatred to achieve true justice. Now, the episode doesn't offer any easy answers. It leaves viewers to ponder the complexities of justice and the ways in which different societies handle the aftermath of war crimes. It acknowledges that some wounds run too deeply to heal easily, and that justice is not always black and white. Maritza's tragic death at the hands of some random angry Bajoran man who kills him out of blind hatred simply because he is Cardassian underscores the cyclical nature of violence and prejudice. This moment serves as a poignant reminder that hatred begets more hatred, and that true peace requires a willingness to understand and forgive even in the face of unspeakable suffering. The performances in this episode are nothing short of incredible. Nana Visitor delivers an intense and deeply emotional performance, capturing the pain and anger of Kira's past, and shows some steady growth of her character. Guest star Harris Yulin delivers an equally powerful performance as Maritza, conveying the character's anguish and complex motivations with nuance and depth. The interactions between both of these actors is superb and charged with emotion. The dialogue is sharp and thought-provoking, making this episode one of the most memorable early episodes in Deep Space Nine's impressive run. DUET is a standout episode not only in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but the entire Star Trek franchise, as it tackles difficult themes with maturity and respect for the audience's collective emotional intelligence. It demonstrates the show's willingness to engage with serious, real-world issues, using its characters and stories to explore the human condition and complex nature of justice, forgiveness, and redemption. And as most great Star Trek, if you were to remove these sci-fi elements within this episode, the writing, the story, and the characters would hold up on their own. This episode is one of my absolute favourites amongst Deep Space Nine and the wider franchise, and it continues to resonate with audiences for its profound storytelling and its unflinching examination of the costs of war and the possibility of healing. I do hope you've enjoyed this video. If you are new here, then hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content. Be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you get kept up to date with all of my latest videos. That's all from me today. I want to say a big thank you to all of my subscribers. Thank you to you watching. You all look after yourselves, you look after one another, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye bye for now.